rainy day.
Wait till tomorrow.
When I was much younger, I did archaeological survey work, and for about a year, I was on base at Fort Bragg, and that's all we did was traipse through the woods and do surveys. And ticks, snakes,
I'm sure for you, but on TV it looked like.
Police there, due to weather.
So you walk like, you walk 5 meters, dig a hole for the shovel. Walk 5 meters, dig a hole for the shovel. You were looking for, you were doing
Hold on one
reconnaissance
second.
for artifacts.
Okay, cause I gotta cancel mine.
All right, so we'll have our welcome, and then we'll have Reverend Richard White here with Christ Community Church to do our prayer, pledge of allegiance, any announcements, and then our ethics statement, our proclamations, awards, and recognition. Chief Coffee with the Black Mountain Fire Department would like to recognize Phil Berry, who actually is a volunteer of ours. And I think I told you wrong, Mayor Harris, this was not Narcan. Phil was on a plane flight, and someone had an emergency, and he performed CPR and saved their life. So that's pretty impressive. So we're going to recognize him Monday for that.
Bill Berry.
Phil Berry, that's
Like
correct.
Berry, like Berry.
B-E-R-Y, I believe, yes. And then citizen comments, of course. And then we'll do some communications from staff, commissions, and agencies. We'll have Ashley Hobbs, who is with North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. She is a bear biologist, from what I understand. I've talked to her a handful of times, but she's going to be here just to talk about bears, try and, get that out in the open for folks. I don't know if y'all have had that experience this fall, but they have been very, very active this fall. Seems to be more than I remember in the past few years.
Yeah.
We've had them at the house multiple times,
Yeah.
families at least. So they're trying to get people to
We had one over here
do
in
the
the parking
trash.
lot Tuesday night. I came by to pay my water bill. You had one walking through here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Saw Tuesday night,
driving down, near the moon, being full on Tuesday night, and it looked like a shadow walking across the road with the moonlight and everything. It's kind of weird. I mean, I actually thought it was a shadow, and you go, no, that's supposed to be a neighbor walking across the road.
I saw a dead cow on I-40.
Oh, yeah, the other day, I saw that.
Where does Ashley come from? She got an office, is that office in Asheville?
She's local, yeah, Asheville,
Yeah.
and yeah, we've talked to her a handful of times. She may have even been here one time to talk, I can't recall, but.
That might be the highlight of the meeting.
Yeah.
You know, I have bears on the road.
And then we'll do our golf course annual report from Brent, and, you know, for you to know, for your info, you know, we did finish this year, in the black for the first time in quite a while, quite a bit in the black, over $50,000 in the black, so that's really good. And then Jessica's gonna talk about post-construction stormwater inspection requirements, and this all rolls into our permit and our ordinance about what folks have to do after they install stormwater control measures. There's a requirement that they're maintained and that they are annually inspected. So we're gonna talk about that, hopefully answer some questions that folks may have, and just let folks know kind of what it is. Consent agenda, adoption of minutes will be first. And then we'll have a budget amendment to increase the expenditure amount for the stormwater master plan. We ended up getting a bill that kind of rode the fence on end of fiscal year, so we need to do a budget amendment to account for that. We have the budget amendment to increase the salaries for part-time employees that we talked about at our last meeting. And then a budget amendment to increase the funding for the Montreat Road Bike Boulevard that we also talked about at the last meeting. In full disclosure, I will say with this item, I'll tell you the Active Mobility Commission did have a meeting, their normal meeting, and they voted to change that crossing. The council and y'all voted to approve that crossing last month on where it was going to be located. So I think they wanted to see a separated crossing with a pedestrian crossing somewhere else and the bike crossing at North Conley. And our engineer, who's been helping us through this, has recommended it be the combined crossing.
So when I chatted with Josh about the agenda, I just said, council discussed it and they decided it, and so just do the budget amendment to make it happen. And there's no need to put anything else on the agenda unless you all want it. Other than that, you're just gonna approve the fund, what you've already voted on.
Well, I guess it's a shame that, issue didn't come up before, a little earlier. But it feels to me like to change it at this point, to separate it, would cost more money. We're already spending more on that than we planned. And to redesign and then split it into two crossings would even cost more money. So in my mind, we just leave it the way it is.
Just move through with the budget. The thing to me, the engineer, his recommendation still stands at Laurel Circle.
That's right.
It comes out. I mean, just personally, what do I know about it? It's just dangerous coming out there on North Conley.
It is.
It's
Can't
East
see
Conley.
it.
It's East
East
Conley.
Conley.
Oh,
Sorry.
but it's, what did I say, yes?
I said north, so you just saw me.
What did I get north?
So is East County the next road up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, right in front of the Baptist Church building.
Yep.
Yes, you can't see anything turning out.
No,
At least heading north, you can't see anything.
you can't have because of the hedges
I
there.
think the
It's
original
hard to
bike plan had the bike
It did.
path going down East Conley.
It did.
Oh,
That's where they got that
instead
idea.
of north or
Instead of Laurel Circle.
Okay.
You know, that bike plan, that was done a number of years ago. And I think as we've got into those types of things, when you bring another engineer in to start doing the analysis of where it actually should be placed, that's kind of where we are now.
Is that in part because there's already sidewalk on Laurel Circle? I mean, because that turn on Laurel Circle is pretty dramatic,
The right turn, yeah.
Yeah, for a kid on the bike, for example. But I think it probably makes sense just to move forward.
Since you're the only one that's probably been on a bike in the last year.
So now I might buy a bike in my retirement.
I can't wait to see you.
And then E, the next item is our the billboard lease at the community garden. I know we've talked about this in the past. Attorney Sneed and I have been discussing this. So the lease that we had in place was an old lease, and that was actually with the Clevengers. It wasn't even with the town of White Mountain. So in order for us to lease property, we have to go through the proper statutes, which means advertisement.
And there's also, I think, a policy question. A lifetime ago, we went through several lawsuits to get rid of billboards or lower the McDonald's sign. And the board may want to consider whether they want to even allow us to continue there.
That's true.
But then, if you do, then we've got to go through the, get an offer and see if we can get somebody outbid. Billboards, thanks to the internet, don't bring the money they used to. There's not big money there.
Well, that's an interesting question. And so council, do you think that might be, you might want to pull that from the consent agenda
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that.
and just put it in new business? You can discuss and, at least get it in process. You don't have to decide anything Monday, or it's Monday, Monday, but, you can discuss it and, if you decide you don't want, maybe you do want to decide on Monday if you don't want to go with it. But, you could always discuss and then move it on another agenda or something. What do you think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they can.
We'll move that to 8G, under new business. We'll get rid of, E will now be the next item.
And we'll make it discussion and possible action, but
And then kind of along the same lines, this is some information that we had found out over the past few months, that we've got a tower on the emergency services building. Skyrunner, who provides internet service, has been using that tower for that purpose. They've got some antenna on it, but have never, given us any kind of monetary value for them co-locating on that tower. I think they should be paying us something, in my opinion, to use our equipment. So we've got, we've also worked with Ron on this, and we've put together a tower license agreement for y'all to take a look at on Monday as well. We've also spoken with the gentleman with Skyrunner too, so they're aware.
So that becomes E.
That's correct.
Should that involve some discussion as well, you think, or?
Yeah, Ron, that's a little bit different, isn't it, than the lease?
It's not a lease. We're doing it as a license, it's permission, but so we get paid while they have permission. And it's set up to run for a 5-year term and renewable, but it's also terminal at will. So that makes it just permission and not a lease. Some means of getting around that, that's not practical to bid out that spot on a piece of metal. And we don't want to tie for a tower in a kind of long-term fix, because we may need, we don't know what the future brings, what kind of new communication equipment you'll want on that tower. We'd like to be able to give them notice that we just need a tower back. That makes it a license without the lease requirements.
I don't know how Callan works other than the details behind it, but you wonder if it's not too expensive that you have a duplicative communication system. If you need it, you can, what if you have, something happen with our 9/11 service, right? I mean, that's the idea, right? Right now, let's go with the county, right? We don't need that tower. Is that what that tower is for?
So yeah, that's a little bit of a different conversation there. But yes, I understand what you're saying, and we're still working with the county on those towers currently, because they've got to add some more towers out here for our service needs.
So when they communicate with us and us with them, we have to have the tower.
That's right. But this tower, is providing that service as well, but it's also providing Skyrunner to provide service to customers too, with their antenna on the tower.
Skyrunner's internet service is, I wonder how many customers they have in town limits. You wouldn't know, would you?
You could ask and not tell me.
I would be curious, I'm just kind of curious about it, there's this mapping, project, just so you know, who's got internet, who doesn't, and all that kind of thing, they were doing that in Atlanta Sky. And I don't know that we ever get mapped.
I don't know that we have or not, to be honest.
Well, you might reach out to Eric, I think Sarah, and I can't remember her last name, but that's all she does now, is that. And, I'm sort of curious, that'd be kind of curious, that would be interesting if you had that information on Monday, just for FYI. I bet you they have.
Can't think of her last name right now, it's escaping me too.
Nah.
Okay, so that'll be it for consent agenda, and then we'll have our second round of citizen comments. No unfinished business. New business, the first item is Duke Energy Progress easement for, what this is an easement for Mr. Fred Alexander to be able to get power to his property. And I've got a map that maybe I can pass around now or even Monday, but essentially he's kind of landlocked and needs access, an easement through our property to be able to get power to the underserved property. I have spoken, I know Ron's got a conflict, and maybe even Archie too. So I have asked Susan with Robert Stevens, and she is actually out of town until Monday, so I'm hoping she'll get back to me about talking about that. I don't think this is a real in-depth conversation, to be honest, but
Well, if for some reason there's just questions and you just, you can't provide counsel with some direction.
that's right.
On Monday, would it be problematic if you don't have that information and just to inform council, then could it be moved if needed on Monday, just table it?
I'm happy to call Fred and ask. I don't see how that would hurt. I mean, it's gonna be another month he's gotta wait, but at the end of the day, I don't know if it's urgent.
So, well, we can talk about this on Monday, but just so I can be.
So the parcel I have outlined, if you can see that, I got rid of all.
902.
Yeah, the one just below that is his property, the bigger piece,
Okay, which one's our property?
the one I have outlined.
Oh.
That's the one that the easement's being
Here's
requested.
an outline, here's the outline.
It says right on Flat Creek down East Street.
So what, we own that piece of property?
We do.
You own that one that's on the corner right there,
It's
it's
just
just a little
woods.
piece, yeah.
That's just
It's in the
that,
floodplain.
in the floodplain.
When did, we owned that for a long time?
Yeah, I think that was something that we got years ago through a FEMA buyout. We had some flooding back in '04 maybe.
It was. It was
And we own a couple of small slivers beside of it too, at least one, I think. But
just one.
So that's the.
What did the quadrant on this map where this is? I don't see anything highlighted.
it's I've got it outlined in a blue Sharpie there. Sorry. This is
Yeah.
that's our pieces. That's the piece that's being asked.
Get you like
That's
a different color outliner or something.
That's-
I'll give you something better Monday.
Well, I see it now.
Do you own,
That's what I know where it was.
Josh, do you own the one to the left or the one to the?
The one to the left, I
Yeah,
believe.
that little one right there where
Yeah.
900 is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 90003.
That's what you own.
No, that's the other one for the
It's in
town.
Oh, the town doesn't too.
That's actually
Yeah,
floodway,
that little one right there, what he's wanting.
which really it means it's not,
There's a road, there's no road, but there used to be.
unless you can get a no rise, which we know how that goes. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, maybe we can,
There's a road. Black Creek was here. And there's
Hold on
road
just a
that
second.
you can see. Right. See, that's my fault.
And so he already has an easement for Lake Drive. Is that what you guys know?
From, I don't know if he has an easement from his drive from us. I don't think so.
No,
Once he gets to
not in the town.
He just
Yes,
he can't really get to it right now without going across our property or someone else's.
yeah, he's like, you'll have to look right down East Street for the bridge. Can I go and fill them in why I can't?
I'm sorry?
Can I fill them in why I can't be here or recuse? While I'm recusing?
it probably not a bad idea for the minutes to say why you're not voting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can.
because if you don't have a reason to recuse yourself, a no vote is a yes vote.
Okay.
A non-vote is a yes
The
vote.
reason I'm recusing myself is because I own some adjoining property that, Ethan Hopper is supposed to run straight down the, left side of my property and then go left. But there's never been a road there ever. And I don't think town wants to put one there because it's gonna cost you to do it. So, so he can't come down there that way and turn up. So he's wanting a little easement just so he could get to his property. So that's why I'm not, as I said,
The easement you'll be voting on is solely a Duke Energy easement. It is not an access easement.
So in this letter, I mean, we maybe should discuss this on Monday, but in his letter, it says even though the town of Black Mountain has already granted these permits and electrical access and a driveway,
So maybe we have, I apologize.
you did.
Duke is asking basically for an easement on that same spot that we've already told them we can use this.
But it's a Duke Energy easement, so I think Duke Energy is gonna need us to sign off on it.
Okay.
Because it's our property.
Well,
not
so,
his.
Ron, can you speak to Archie's, conflict and whether he needs to vote, whether he can accuse himself?
Obviously, it's the opinion that it will have a financial impact on him, and so I think he can recuse himself.
Yeah, because the reason being, if you say no, then he's gonna want you to open up that Ethan Hopper, which is pretty good. There was nothing there for a roof there, so.
So what I would suggest, Archie, and, Ron, just jump in, but I'm gonna do the ethics statement, and you can just disclose your financial interests,
Yeah.
and item, 8A, and that you will recuse yourself and not vote, nor participate in the deliberation. Is that right, Bud?
That'll work.
All right, item 8B is Highway 70 water line. We're gonna set up the capital project fund for the Highway 70 water line. Just to remind you, this is some of the money that we got from ARPA that we're using for this project. We've gotten some bills in, so it's time to set up this capital project fund. We're gonna set it up as a capital project fund because more than likely it's gonna span more than one budget year. Because I don't foresee that being installed by June 30th of next year. I just don't think that's gonna happen.
They'll proceed.
And even the pipe's 43 weeks out. Last time we talked to them, so it's that long to wait on water line right now for what we need.
Before we vote, just to make it clear, and the reason that I am recusing myself is that if he is granted the easement, then eventually, he and I, and well, it's just me and him because I own everything else through there, got a petition for that road to be closed.
So what I'll do, Archie, if it sounds good, I've made a note here. If you would like for me to, if you want to speak about it, you can, but I can just say that, that the councilman will recuse himself from new business item 8A, from voting and deliberations due to financial interest.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll just-
That's fine.
And the new ordinance, and it used to get, had to have a direct financial interest. Now it's only direct, it's a financial impact. Under the old rules, you cannot recuse himself.
Financial impact.
Let's see, item 8C is gonna be an amendment to our ARPA grant project ordinance, and an amendment to our fiscal year 22-23 general fund annual budget ordinance. You know, we talked about this a few months ago where, you know, as we accumulated the salaries, we were gonna transfer money in, and that's what this is. So we're accumulating those salaries, and now we're gonna use the ARPA money to pay for those salaries, which gives us a surplus in the salary line, essentially. If that makes sense.
And then you move those art funds into like a, that's what I'm looking for.
Moving into like the dam project ordinance and the water line project ordinance.
That's water, that water ordinance, that's in the water fund.
That will be water fund, correct?
Well,
It's a
it's a
project.
capital project, but it's a enterprise capital project.
Well, what I'm getting at was just a question that Ravenel, not a question, just a point that Withers Ravenel made about any project, that for grant money, getting grant purposes, grant application purposes, that the state did not like to see use general fund monies in water fund.
That's right. That's right.
So we're okay.
Yes. Right, we're okay, Tammy?
We should be fine because you guys had decided you wanted to use part of the ARPA money for that, and I said that was water salaries that made up the majority of that portion of money that we're moving. So it looks like we're just replacing the water salaries and we're doing that.
That works.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do, though. We
That's
don't
right.
want to decrease our opportunity to get state roads.
Exactly. Item D is a resolution for Honeycutt Street one-way. This has been going on for a few months now. I know we talked about this, and we've had an engineer do the study for the one-way study on Honeycutt, and he is recommending that if we are going to do the one-way, that it go from, essentially go west. So it would be going up the hill from West Street, which is right out here, up to Monterey Road. So you would no longer be able to turn off Monterey Road and come down by public safety. That would be one way going west now.
Or if you do, you might get a ticket.
That's correct.
Can you pay the
This could be a
tickets
real
in
money
advance?
maker for us.
Can you pay the tickets in advance? That would work sometimes. But we're not gonna lose any diagonal parking that way. It will essentially be the same, so we're not losing any parking spaces. And I'm ready to get that striped. I hope we can get that done before it gets too cold. Item 8E is a facilities use agreement at the Carver Center. The Montessori School, we did some renovations to that kitchen a number of years ago. I think when I first came back, so it's probably been about 4 years, we did those renovations to that kitchen up there in order for them to hold some type of classes at some point in time. Well, with COVID and everything else, they've just not been able to do that. So they have come to myself and Ron, and we worked out an agreement to present to council. But essentially what it is that the Montessori School wants to allow Bounty and Soul to use the kitchen for cooking classes for middle-aged children and their parents. I think 1 day a week in the afternoon, and that's really all it is in a nutshell.
We just beefed up the agreement with the town more protection, insulation being potential liability.
And then let's see, 8F will be Historic Preservation Commission vacancy. We did receive an application, Amy Pate, and she will be the only one that we've gotten to fill that term. And how many do we have left?
If she is appointed on Monday, we'll have one vacancy left on historic preservation.
So that's a 5-member board. So they have to have 3 members to do business. So that's all they've been operating on now for a number of months. So this will be helpful. And then of course, G, we pulled from the consent agenda. That's the billboard lease. And that'll be it. No public hearings, and then communication from Ron and myself, and communication from mayor and council.
All right, councils, that look good as amended.
I just have one item that I wanted to throw out. You may or may not want to add it to this agenda. But I know I've been talking about it for 2 years, and I think we all have, about the crosswalk on Broadway. I know we've done a lot of work already, the traffic study, the traffic count, foot count. At any rate, it's moved up in my mind in terms of urgency, just because there's a whole lot more activity on Broadway now. And I'm telling you, in October, I was scared to drive down that street. People were everywhere. It was like a giant street party with cars.
The Grange is a very busy place.
And they have reason to cross a lot. And so Casey from the Grange put cones in the road just to slow people down a little bit. But it really did scare me. And so I'm just wondering if we want to increase the urgency of that project. I don't know where we are right now with that, but I know that we're going to have to.
How do we do that? We have to request convincing
So
we have
yes.
to pay for it, and I know we're paying, but I don't know what we have to do. I just wondered.
No, I think I'm happy to put it on his H, new business crosswalk on Broadway, and just get it moving.
And if y'all want to give me permission to get rolling on that, because we'll have to get some engineer, have to have some design work.
Right.
And I want to make sure that all the merchants on that street are going to be aware that we're going to lose parking spaces.
Parking
you're gonna have
spaces are going to be an issue. We need public time for input.
Just get rolling on it. It'll be good, if it sounds good to council, we should put it on the agenda, because it's good for the public to know that it's in process. The way things go now, it should be there in 5 or 10 years.
How's it going to affect traffic? This going to affect traffic?
It sure will.
Oh, it will. Mm-hmm.
It's got to have one of those light things, like State Street.
The issue is you're gonna get some
Red
backup.
lights. You're gonna get back on the real lights.
Sure are. So we just got to look at all that,
We did.
whatever the problems are, we just have to.
The engineer helped us through that for sure,
Yeah.
looking at those traffic counts and the backups. Yes,
Well, if something happens and we have not addressed it,
Oh, I agree.
you know, I feel some responsibility there.
You know, and you know, in the meeting, again, this is, we can discuss this more on Monday, but we also need to discuss with NCDOT. It's gonna take a while to get this done.
it will.
And, you know, what can we do, town attorney, what can we do to post, you know, warning signs, whatever, you know, do not cross, you know, I mean, you know, I think about Boone, when you go to Boone, you know, you have to walk to the end of the block,
That's right.
you get across the street, you know, red light, red light.
That's true.
So, you know, you could say, hey, no, you can't do, you cannot, you know, crosswalking, you put up a sign. They want a crosswalk, then they're disobeying the directions. And that may end up being at the end of the day, after the NCDOT looks at it, to look at the traffic problems, and maybe, you know, I mean, the traffic problems at the light, it gets backed up. Because people start crossing the road, the cross light, it's gonna take, it's busy in town, it's
Well,
gonna
for
take
sure.
5 minutes to get everybody across. Maybe the NCDOT and the engineer's gonna say, you can't do it, you gotta direct them to one end of the street or the other.
Well, I know in our conversations with them in the past, now it's been a few months, because we did end up doing those counts. They were okay with it. Now, they may have changed their mind since then, but I will find out.
Thank you.
Sure.
But let's put it on, that'd be H, new business H. And it just gets it kicked off, we probably discussed it, believe it or not, but it gets it
I
just
appreciate
going.
it. Thank
So the agenda, as presented, amended by moving, E on the consent agenda to new business G, and making the Skyler license, E on the consent agenda. And we have also added a crosswalk on Broadway, discussion, whatever you want to call it, is item H for new business. Does that sound good, council? And so maybe I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
you. So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sounds like we're done. Everybody have a good evening.
You too.
And reminder, we're closed.